Y'all two are having way too much fucking fun at the beginning. That's not allowed. Hi, guys.
I'm just dancing to your intro. It's fine.
We're talking about purity culture. Come on.
Yes.
I'm on some my tits are iconic date today too. So I'm in no motherfucking mood, and I'm on some my tits are iconic shit today. So
like I was saying, I changed shirts.
I knew.
I changed shirts for this stream so that I am as not purity culture appropriate as possible.
Callan, my tits are iconic. Callan pokes head up.
And this was your freaking topic too. Like you were like, hey, if I'm gonna do this, I want to talk about this because this is a major fucking problem. So, Maddie, give yourself a quick introduction because unlike quite a few of our other guests, I'm not sure if many people in the community outside of my Discord know all that much about you. You kind of haven't been exposed to the larger community that much as of yet.
Stay that way. Save your fucking sanity.
Okay, well, hey team, I'm Maddie. I have a YouTube channel that is ScienceSideUp. It's a science communication channel. The goal is to make really just to make science more accessible to humans who don't have the opportunity, like I do, to spend their entire adult lives doing that science. So I think it's super cool. You should check it out. I am on here as the Christian that hangs out in Aliakai's Discord.
Yeah, we've got you and like one other person who's like a Quaker,
Christian,
and that's about it.
Oh my goodness, I haven't found this other one.
The Christian. I have to go find the other Christian.
I know, it'll be fun. So that's fun. So normally when I come on like other people's channels, I'm talking science stuff. I don't normally talk faith things. So I am Episcopalian. I guess other things about me. This is more of my science stuff. I have a bachelor's degree from MIT in math and Earth, atmospheric, and planetary science. Then I ran off and joined the Navy for a few years where I taught physics, nuclear physics to sailors that operate nuclear reactors.
We need a quick consensus among the counters whether or not like finger guns count as F-bombs.
So Maddie, I say fuck a lot. Mm-hmm. So I have a counter.
I know. It's okay. Like I curse like a sailor.
Good. You were a sailor, so I mean,
I
it's
was
fucking
exactly.
fitting, you know?
I like to think of myself as a lady with the mouth of a well-educated pirate.
You're a lady. You're a lady with seasoning.
Exactly.
You're a lady. With
no, I curse enough. It makes the Okay, so I am. I turned 30 this year, and most of my fellow graduate students are like 22, 23. And so I curse so much to make them uncomfortable. I feel a little bad about that. Sailors do a swear. Those are real. Yeah.
We do need to do our typical first introduction to the show because again, you're the very first Christian heretic that we've had on the show. And for the record, you should probably go a little bit into that after you answer this question, which is what does allyship mean to you?
Okay, so allyship to me. So I really, really believe that we as people, we as just humans, have more things in common than we are. You know, we're more alike than we are different. Most of us, right? We want our communities to thrive. We care about our neighbors, right? So how we answer, what our personal faith or lack thereof is, shouldn't. That makes us more interesting to me. I think it would be incredibly, incredibly boring if everybody had the same answer to that question. And so, there are so many things that, even if we are of different faiths, lack thereof, that we can come together on things that we can come together against harm and against. Tonight we're going to talk about purity culture, so I'm super excited about that. But we could also come together about hey, our community should really have sorry, I'm in grad school for meteorology, and atmospheric science stuff. So like, I'm like, it would be super cool if the planet wasn't warming so fast. That'd be
it would be
great.
super great
That would be
if we
so
could
great
live
for
long
humans.
enough to keep arguing this dumb shit on
Yeah.
the planet.
I would, yeah, like.
Well, and that's aren't you
Let's
doing
take care of other
doctoral,
humans? Let's do that.
Like, and aren't you doing your doctoral thesis on like the Antarctic ice sheets?
Wrong poll. I study Arctic sea ice.
Oh, the Arctic ice sheets.
Can you just sit down and talk to me about all of it one night, because it's something I'm super fascinated with.
Yeah,
I'm
I would
super
love if you
fascinated
want
by
to
it.
listen to me ramble about my dissertation. No one wants to listen to me
Oh
ramble
my
about
god,
my
like
dissertation.
all day. I go into wiki holes about that shit, like about like distinct icebergs and distinct shelves and how far this one's cracked, and I'm like,
So what's interesting is you're talking about freshwater ice, and I
do
actually
saltwater?
study. I do saltwater. I do saltwater.
Still, like,
Mhm.
I find the Arctic more fascinating than the Antarctic.
Antarctic is odd. So
It's
what's
odd, but I find the Arctic far more fascinating.
Yeah. So the Antarctic is so Arctic and Antarctic are like inverses of each other, because the Antarctic is a large piece of land, continent surrounded by ocean, and that ocean is really interesting because it's where all of the world's oceans dump and mix together and then get spat back out. So the ocean dynamics around Antarctica are super important, and to climate change, actually, because that's one of the that's an ocean circulation that takes like 2,000 years to complete, and it's super important for global heat transport.
So,
and we
by
don't
the way,
fully
in the
understand
chat,
it.
by the way, in the chat, you are absolutely getting invitations to do your dissertation in the after party.
I'm just like,
Okay, great. That sounds awesome.
Which, by the way, if Maddie's up to it, we are doing an after party tonight, as far as I know.
I'll be there for a bit.
So
I'm good and
So I'm just gonna
But
let you
when
guys read my mug, and depending on what's actually in it, will determine how long I'm in after party.
I think my fascination with the Arctic is how far up people live, like actually live and carry every day. And if
what's
I'm not
really
mistaken,
interesting
the
is
temperatures
that-
actually rate colder in the Arctic than they do in the Antarctic, don't they?
so for the record,
Depends.
Philippe, she actually was in the Navy. Like, she was a Navy nuke, specifically.
Yeah. So I was. Oh my gosh, I was a lieutenant. I was a fucking officer. So I separated as a lieutenant.
You snob.
I know.
You
But I was
educated
yeah. So I was active duty for like 4.5 years. And then I just had the nerdiest, weirdest job in the Navy, where you're only allowed to do that job for 4 years as a nuke instructor. And then basically ensigns are a lot less expensive than lieutenants. So like you hit O3, and then they're like, okay, bye.
Yeah, they're like, we're actually cutting the force now, because that was part of the, can't remember the name, but when the economy shut down and they started cutting it, can't remember the name of that. Oh fuck! When they started cutting everything and they told everyone to leave the military, Congress got shut down, the country went into shutdown, and part of one of the packages that expired was military enlistment.
Yeah.
So I know guys that were in 18 years, and they told them that they had to get out. They weren't even holding them for retirement.
They
had to go. They're discharging them.
That's fucking no. So I knew when I got in, this is a 4-year deal.
Yeah, you were 4 years cut and dry, and then I'm done.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
So I could have done what's called a lat transfer and tried to join a different officer community.
Yep.
So and if I had done that, I would have tried to go METOC, which is the Navy's meteorology and
Meteorology
oceanography
department.
branch.
Yeah.
My
cousin was Navy. I know a freakish amount about this.
That's awesome. I love talking to people that know what the fuck I'm talking about when I talk about the Navy, because no one does. Okay, like I said, in my grad program, I'm like the oldest person in the grad program.
No offense, Maddie, but we are going to get way off in the weeds if we go too deep into that.
Blood, Sweat, and Steel was.
I'm also gonna say I'm the only vet.
I wanted my ex-husband to go to Wasilla, like the base right outside of Wasilla. I forgot which one that is. Not Fairbanks, the one up. I wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, who could say that you live in a place that the sun doesn't go down for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like,
I might, fingers crossed, get to do field work in the Arctic either next summer or the summer after.
Can I come?
Okay, I think Jen might agree with that statement in a very different context.
Not like that. Shut up. Don't tell anybody what I was telling you in voice clips. Shut up.
What are you talking about?
Sorry.
I torment Allie with grand ideas of my sex life, so.
Okay, I'll save anything else about Arctic sea ice for after party. Yes, so I'll do my best.
Or maybe even toward the end, but we had promised everybody, like, in the intro and in our conversation, that we were going to be talking about purity culture. And that's funny because, like, just so y'all know, we're hopping on the boob train to Mammary Land, and we're just going to stay there for most of this conversation. So
I opened with highlighting the boobs, like, even before the intro played. I was like,
so everybody, all aboard, we're heading to Mammary Land.
I'm showing my bra. I've got my shoulders completely out.
I've got my pretty
like, cleavage. Maybe I think actually my name bar might be covering my cleavage.
I've got my pretty, they no longer make Victoria's Secret. It's like a dark burgundy red, and it's got this thick lace band.
Nice.
So, you know what's... You know what's interesting, though? Let's not kill YouTube. YouTube is part of the problem, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, this sort of thing. So let's go ahead and talk about this, because Maddie, I'm going to give you the floor. You're the one who said you wanted to start talking about this. So, like, what's your beef with purity culture? And you hadn't quite gotten into your religious beliefs either, because that's what makes you the perfect Christian to bring on to talk about this, too. Because you are a fucking heretic. Like, I'm not just using that for marketing. You are.
I am. I describe myself as a heretic. So, like I said earlier, like, so I am Episcopalian. I was raised in a non-denominational evangelical church.
For those that don't know, Episcopalian's like Christian light.
Yeah, well, it's okay. So my favorite thing about Episcopalianism is that they view, whenever you're sort of like approaching a decision or something theological or anything like that, the stance of the church is that there are three things that you should consider in equal measure, right? And that is one, scripture, two, other church writings that are just like not in the Bible, but like maybe somebody from 1,000 years ago had something interesting to say on this topic. And the third is reason. And in other words,
all of the Apocrypha is canon.
It's canon as long as it doesn't break with reason. Does that make sense? So like, there's very little dogma, and it's a very big tent branch of Christianity. So things that I really appreciate about the Episcopal Church. One, they were the first group to. They will ordain women and anyone of. Not just women, but anyone of any sexual identity or gender identity. They were the first to do so. They were the first group to, also their priests can be married to anyone of any gender, right? So they were the first to have a gay bishop. Bishop is over priest for those who don't come from Catholicism or other.
It's priest, bishop, cardinal, Pope.
We don't have cardinals.
Catholics. Okay, you don't have cardinals.
We don't have cardinals.
Yeah, those are the red hats. Those are the red hat guys.
So we just go, like, there are like levels of priest that I don't fully understand.
You gotta level the fuck up, like this part of the church.
Yeah, you gotta level up.
You have to unlock this part of the church as you play.
Book of Enoch is so the Book of Enoch is not considered like. So, okay, no one in Episcopalianism takes, like, the Bible or the Apocrypha, like, completely literally. They're not mythic.
They're not literalists, yeah.
Exactly. So they would so Enoch is not it's not a book of the Bible, right? The book of Enoch. Not the character Enoch. He's in the lineage of Noah. And super fucking interesting, even though he has, like, 5 lines. But, so it would be viewed as a myth. Of the time. So interesting and potentially valuable in terms of like a literary work, but a literary work, right? Yeah. So kind of like the same way like I view Job. Job is a beautiful piece of literature, but it is fiction. right? It is intended to be read as fiction.
This is why I love it.
Well, and this is where, like, here's another really interesting thing. Russ had asked me before the show to ask you what your beliefs are on personal experiences and pagans and stuff, and like what makes you an ally in that regard, because you and I have had long, extended conversations about this.
Yeah, so the short version of that is, you know, I have had my personal experiences with the divine, right? And if I am going to accept my personal experiences as valid, then to me, that means that, well, if someone else tells me that they have had a personal experience with the divine and it just happens to be with a different deity than the one I encountered, like, who am I to say that they are wrong, right? Like, I have no ground to stand on if my personal experience counts but yours doesn't. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Can you go talk to some atheists for me?
Sure. And I also, another way I like to say this is I like to work off the assumption that, especially when it comes to the divine, everyone is wrong, right? No one has it figured out, right? Because how arrogant would it be for me to say, oh yes, I, Maddie, of the 7 billion people on planet Earth, am the only one who has everything figured out about the divine. So I am wrong about things that I believe and hold to be true, but I don't know which things I'm wrong about. Does that make sense?
This is me, an Episcopalian. Maddie's fucking me, an Episcopalian. It's like, no, everyone's fucking wrong.
Right.
Everyone's fucking wrong.
Exactly.
It's personal interpretation. Who the fuck are you to say shit?
Yeah.
How the fuck am I special? Fuck off. Like,
yeah.
This is me, an Episcopalian. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, like, I know what I believe and why I believe it, but you are not me. So we're not going to have the same experience, right? Like,
well, and we've even had conversations about how, like, you're not absolutely sure, like, you don't believe in hell as far as you can tell. Not really.
No, not really.
And, like, we've talked also about, like, how you can't necessarily disprove that other gods exist. You just have a strong connection to the Bible and to the message of Jesus Christ. Like,
yeah.
Which is why I described you as, like, basically a monologist.
Yeah. Other reasons that I call myself a heretic would be, like, the way I understand the Trinity would fall under modalism. That was a very interesting.
All right, you said the bad word now. Now you said the fucking bad word.
Trinity or modalism?
Trinity.
Except that Maddie accepts that, like, modalism is itself a heresy and still believes it.
The Trinity. Ocean and I have the same view on the Trinity because I grew up Catholic. Yeah. So you want to see people fuck up the Trinity to God's end? Go to the Catholics because it's like, no, these are 3 separate people, but we're monotheists, and it's like, oh, hold up.
Yeah. Modalism's not Voltron God. Modalism is God is, like, only Jesus Christ when he's Jesus Christ. God is only the Holy Spirit when he's the Holy Spirit. Yeah. God is only God when he's God.
Right. Now, to the Catholics, we're only supposed to believe in one God, yet we're supposed to worship the Trinity as each separate God. So I was like, so we're polytheists? And they're like, no.
For me, the way I view it is, this is actually, the way I view it is, I view, like, this is another fucking stream. But actually, so my understanding of the Trinity is informed by my understanding of the particle wave duality of light.
Ooh.
That was another interesting conversation.
That was. So the idea there is that, so light is both a particle and a wave, but so Isaac Asimov, who is a great science fiction writer and also a great physicist, and so a great science writer, explained this as, so imagine that you showed this is actually the first video on my fucking channel, if you want to hear me explain it in detail, not the Trinity part, but the particle wave duality. Imagine that you showed a traffic cone to a 2-dimensional person. To one, you showed them the side, they would see a triangle. To the other, you showed the top, they would see a circle. And then you get them in the same room and they argue about what they saw. So one saw a triangle, one saw a circle.
Right.
But neither of them saw the whole picture. So for me, that, like, the Trinity are three aspects.
We're not watching that movie, Russ. We're not watching it now.
The Trinity are these like one part is it's the aspects of God that we can perceive because we are like live in a lower dimension than what God exhibits, because our universe is somewhere between 11 and 21 dimensions. We only perceive like 3.5 of them. So anyway,
Hercules,
we were
are we
like
which Orthodox church? Hold on, which Orthodox church are we talking? Orthodox Greek? Which Orthodox church? You have to remember, I grew up in New York City. You could throw Orthodox in front of fucking Orthodox Fifth Avenue, and I would know exactly what part of fucking Fifth Avenue you were talking about. Like,
so if you're talking about in general the Eastern Orthodox Church, as in that which came out of the Byzantine Empire and includes the Greek and Russian and
but it's okay. So growing up in New York, like you have the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? And then you have the Russian Orthodox Church, and then you have the Greek Orthodox, and they all fucking hate each other. They all fucking hate each other, and they're all fucking wrong, and they're all fucking stupid. And I'm like, y'all come from the same shit. What?
Okay. Sorry.
Like y'all just mad at each other's cooking. Why are you fucking arguing about this? How many pagans are ex-Catholics? So funny story. I can't even begin to tell you how many fluffy bunnies I had in my confirmation class. I can't even begin to tell you these bitches we had this store in Forest Hills, right, called Pastimes. And it was very fluffy bunny. It had dream catchers in the doorway, and it smelled like patchouli. Like it was one of these fucking places, right?
Okay, dream catchers are a fucking sorry,
right? So when you used to walk in,
it's a fucking cultural thing that's just been so appropriated and so
fluffy bunny shit, right?
By everybody.
So everyone, it pisses me off.
So you walk into Pastimes, right? And they got these little fucking different colored candles for 99 cents. And all us broke fucking bitches, they'd go run to fucking Pastimes and buy all these different colored candles. And then after confirmation class, they would go home and burn candles for their chakras. Like, bitch, you just took the host foreskin down your throat, and now you're gonna go light the candles for the crystals and the chakras.
Okay, we need to bring a little bit of Servalor in. You took your Jesus. What you doing?
Jesus.
No, your Jesus with a J.
You took your Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't even tell you how many fluffy bunnies were in my fucking confirmation class. Like, these bitches is standing there with the robe, with the name and shit, right? The red robe, right? And then they fucking go home, and the bitch got a crystal on her fucking neck and shit during confirmation. Like, she's being confirmed, and the bitch got a jade egg in a fucking pussy. And it's like, I'm totally confirming in the Catholic faith as I'm sitting here feeling myself up with a fucking crystal. Like,
oh, God. Well, that's a perfect transition into actually talking about purity culture, because to be honest, like, one of the biggest things that tends to happen when you have this incredibly restrictive, like, holy shit, you got a lot back. Hold on a second. I need to tell them to be
Russ. You just took the Lord's fucking foreskin, Gen 2020. That's going in the Discord server.
Which was the saint who had an engagement ring in theory made out of Jesus' foreskin?
Wait, there's a saint that has an engagement ring out of foreskin. Wait, I'm Googling this, bitch.
Kathleen Doty, the Ask Mortician. She has an episode on
Caitlin Doty, yeah.
Caitlin Doty. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the chick who claimed that. Yeah.
Wait, it was she had an engagement ring that she said was Jesus's foreskin, so she just like robbed the church for like the Sunday host? Like, what did she do?
I don't know.
Or were they actual
she
foreskins?
claims that she claims that it was given to her like in a vision. But I was trying to get to a thing before.
Wait, hold on! No! How the fuck do you get a foreskin? And now I'm not discrediting visions. Everyone's experience is their experience. How the fuck do you get a fucking foreskin in a fucking vision? Like why a foreskin?
Jen.
Why?
It was a miracle. It was a miracle, Jen.
No, I don't want you a dick. No, that a dick leftover is that no.
Freddie.
No.
What is it? It's Nightmare on Elm Street rules.
No.
You can bring shit out of your dream.
This is like magic dick meatloaf. Like, this is dick leftovers mashed up into some shit in a vision. This shit ain't nothing but magic dick meatloaf. No, and I'm not fucking here for it. No.
Okay.
No.
I thought you'd like that. Okay,
fuck?
But purity culture. Okay,
Yes.
So, like I said, so I am Episcopalian in adulthood, like, by choice. I was raised in an evangelical church. And so I was raised I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Which is where it's so much churches. So I was very much raised deeply in purity culture. And I find it incredibly, incredibly, incredibly damaging and unhealthy. So I thought that would be, we were thinking about allyship of things which are like harmful, and especially with this channel, I was thinking about things that are like harmful to women, or to be all inclusive. It's harmful. It's fucking harmful to everybody. Purity culture is harmful. So if you were not raised in it, there is a book. It is called, the title of the book is Pure.
Of course.
Yeah. No. It's really.
It's got a white cover too, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a collection of stories of women who were raised and harmed by.
Oh, okay.
Culture.
I thought this was like a
right.
guide.
So it's not like a. It's not like a. It's not
It's not like a how-to. It's not some biblical gender role kind of shit.
Right. No, it's not that shit.
Gotcha.
It's for me. It was really affirming to read that book, because I was like, oh, cool. I'm not blowing this shit out of proportion. Other people's heads were fucked up by it.
Yeah.
Right. So why don't I just give a quick rundown of what you're taught at as a 10, 11, 12-year-old girl?
We probably have a lot of the same teachings.
Probably. So
because Catholics and Episcopalians are kind of on par with purity shit.
Well, and I mean, you weren't raised Episcopalian, though. You converted to Episcopalianism later, right?
Correct.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
Raised,
okay.
I was raised non-denominational. So that's actually an interesting thing. Because I was originally Church of Christ, which is its own. My entire extended family is that my parents and the church that we attended when I was very young, like about 5, basically decided that women should have roles in the church, and made the conscious decision to break away from Church of Christ.
Got it.
And so I was weirdly, while I was raised in this non-denominational evangelical, things which are often very harmful. I was raised in a church that was where what was modeled for me was adults questioning what they had been taught, questioning their faith, moving away from harmful doctrine, right? And so I think sort of what was unintentionally modeled for me as a young child was permission to question, and permission to think for myself, think critically. One of the best things my parents ever did when I was about 6 years old and all of my friends were getting baptized, I asked to be baptized and my parents said no, because I wasn't old enough to understand what that meant. And before they would let me do that, which would be the equivalent of confirmation for a Catholic, before they would let me do that, I was 11 or 12 and I had to read, they had me read the book of John, right, on my own, and summarize the gospel back to them. I basically had to do a book report for them before they would
I have the confirmation's confirmation's 14 for Catholic.
Okay.
So we're a bit older.
Right.
But I have the rule that I will not allow my child to be confirmed or solidified in any church before he's 18.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And at that, at that age, once, he's a little bit more capable of understanding, then I have no problem with him making a choice of whatever faith he wants to follow. But you want to follow, you want to look into, that's fine. But if you're going to be baptized, be confirmed, you got to be an adult in my house. Because I want to make sure, I want him to know that taking commitment is serious. Taking a commitment,
I think that's totally fair.
I'm telling you, this is why Catholics are fucked up in relationships, because they're forced to make a commitment of 14 that they have no fucking concept of, and then it's like, oh, all of my commitments are going to be like this. Fuck up all their relationships. I'm convinced.
Speaking though of like Catholics though, this is something, no offense to anybody who's ex-Catholic, but this is a thing that was very much a thing in my school, and I've heard that it's been a thing in a lot of schools. In like my college, one of the jokes that was perpetually there was, if you want to have a good time, hook up with a Catholic girl. And the reason
we had
for that,
we had all girl Catholic schools in New York City. That absolutely was the running
That's a thing. And part of the reason for that is because of the fact that when you put somebody in a position of this extreme level of not only just indoctrination, but also like control, and when you have them deny one of their basic human needs, which I'm going to let everybody know, for anybody who has a sex drive, sexuality is a fucking human need. I don't care if you're ringing the bell or you're getting it from somebody. Like, you know, even if you are, you know, ace and still have a drive or something like that, that is a need that still needs to be fulfilled. If you are ace and you don't have that drive, then you are a rare exception and probably pretty lucky.
I'm gonna say it right now, and I've said it many times about my relationships. Sex is not the most important thing.
Sup, Wolf?
Hey, Wolf. Sex is not the most important thing, but if we're not sexually compatible, it's not going to work with me. It's
and that's completely fair. But what I was taught as starting in like prepubescence, so at about 10 or 11, right? Was that all sexual desire is lust, right? So that means that, oh, sorry. God, I'm sorry. I'm in ADHD for a second. Hi, Wolf. I was on the bar crawl a couple weeks ago, and I watched your, like the prayer to Thor, and I completely, sorry, I loved that. I
beautiful.
I thought it was so beautiful, and I love learning. I love seeing how other people, again, like interact with the divine and all these things. I love learning about other traditions. So that was, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I think that's the one that I sat in on. And even as an atheist, I was like, I'm not drawing anything divine from this, but this is so calming and just so peaceful for me that it did invoke a feeling for me. I wouldn't say it was divine. What the fuck is banging in my house? Probably my kid.
Okay, sorry.
But we were on the subject of like repression and purity culture and stuff.
All sexual desire is lust, and which means that when they start teaching you this before you hit puberty. So when you hit puberty and you start having those very normal, natural, like sexual desires.
Screw everything that walks and being attracted to anything that like smells slightly nice. Like that's a thing.
Every time, right? And that says that every time you have that feeling, you're sinning, right? Because lust is a sin, right? And so every time you have a normal, natural sexual desire, it's just, it's a sin. And so you learn to just try to shut that down, and it brings so much shame. But then the other part of it that you're taught as a girl, like a young girl, is that, and this is the part that has stuck with me the longest, and I still
and I would argue that anybody assigned female at birth would be taught this. Like even I've met trans men who are struggling with this still because it's instilled in everybody who's AFAB from a very, very young age.
Hey, Carpathia. Same.
Yeah, 8. Same Carpathia. 8. We talked about that.
I was 9. I was 9. Yeah,
I was between 9 and 9.5, but yeah.
Yep, 9.5 for me.
So you're also taught that men and boys, and so the assigned male at birth, once aroused, lose control of themselves. Right?
Which is something that I was stupid.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
Like that's see, mine wasn't channeled through the church, it was channeled through culture. And it was very old school Italian Roman Catholic culture. And it was, you have to submit sexually to your husband because once men are turned on, they can't turn off.
Well, but take that down away from outside of marriage, which is harmful enough, and to put that onto a 12-year-old girl, and I absolutely had breasts
I was
at 12.
13 when I was taught this.
that says that one, men are very visual. So if I hate that. So if you dress immodestly, and that's the word that's used, if you dress immodestly, you will by your dress, you will cause a man or a boy to become aroused. You'll cause him to lust. So not only
it's some real
by
rape
your
apologist
actions,
shit. It's some real rape apologist shit.
It is, but it also says that not only by wearing a tank top, you're causing someone else to sin, right? So somehow their sin becomes my responsibility, right? And then anything
that's right on up there with that's right on up there with people
fault.
blaming the fucking that's right on up there with people blaming the fucking mistress. Like, it takes two to tango, guys. Like, it really fucking does.
No. Yeah, granted, it takes two to tango. However, if this bitch knows that I'm in a monogamous relationship with dude or with whoever, and she does it anyway,
I'm gonna tell
she at fault too. Fuck that bitch too. Now, if
I was a product of my mom didn't know. She didn't find out until he was halfway through the divorce papers.
Yeah, not knowing is one thing. You can't fault somebody for something they don't know. However, if that bitch knows and she's like, I don't give a fuck anyway, bitch, you wrong too. I'm gonna blame your motherfucking ass too. Because that's the only time I will call someone a fucking slut, is if you fuck with someone you know you shouldn't be fucking with like that. That's the only
Jen,
time.
But the important part of that sentence there is that you'll blame that bitch too. Right? The two is the important word.
Yes! And no, but we have the same thing where... So, my family's very culturally Italian. So, men are expected to have a wife and a mistress, a gumar. And these wives will fucking hate that bitch. They'll fucking hate that bitch because if you're a gumar, you're a slut, you're a whore, you have no morals, but will then turn on themselves and say, what am I doing wrong as a wife that my husband is straying? And a lot of the time it comes down to, we're mothers and we're tired. I'm sorry, I don't want to fuck you all the time. I got this little fucking snot-nosed little mommy on my goddamn leg all day. I don't want to be touched once he's in bed. No, I don't want to. And then it's, men have needs and men get turned on. And because I'm not fulfilling that, he's going out and getting it elsewhere. So it's my fault.
Right. And this is where things are put. And I know that like a purity culture hurts men and anyone who the like church would identify as a man or a boy, because it tells them that if you are just a good Christian and don't look at porn and don't masturbate, then God will provide you with a wife who will just have sex with you anytime you want.
A pure
and somehow
wife
she'll be both a virgin when you marry her and also super good at sex.
So I'm gonna quote what was said literally during my confirmation, because the priest at our confirmation fucking covered this. And he said that if boys were good Catholic boys and they, didn't sin against their parents and they didn't, quote unquote, sin against the flesh, then
so they didn't masturbate.
Then God will provide you a wonderful woman who is pure of heart and pure of virtue. Meanwhile, 2 weeks before that, I'm getting finger banged on the fucking altar, literally 2 weeks before that, before fucking choir practice. And I'm like, guess I ain't marrying no one in this motherfucking confirmation class, huh? Guess not.
Well, at least, I mean, just find a guy, anyway, just find a guy that like masturbated and then you're good to go because he committed a sin of the flesh, so it's good.
See, but I'm Catholic. If we masturbated or we did some fucked up shit, we went, go told the man in the box, did a couple of Hail Marys and we were fucking good.
See, that's not...
You guys don't get that. You don't get that cheat code. That's our cheat code. You don't get that.
That's your cheat code. We don't.
That's our cheat
code. Completely separate conversation we should have is like the actual because in Episcopalianism you don't do like the fucking booth thing,
penance.
But you do.
We call it a confession and penance. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that shit, but we do like during the service the like forgiveness of sins. You do like the group version.
Oh God, that makes life so much easier.
Yeah, it's super easy. But I actually find great value in that part of the service. And so for me, purity culture was like the biggest thing that really, do we need to include sins against the flesh counter? Maybe, but every time somebody says it, I'm just going to replace it with masturbate. Like,
furiously beat off. That's what we're going to
ring the devil's doorbell repeatedly and with vigor. Speaking of which, if you guys are new in my audience and you have not yet rung the devil's doorbell on my channel, please hit the subscribe button and the notification
with toys bell. If you are so economically blessed.
No, Jen, thou shalt not with prosperity gospel. We have been there before.
Thou shalt not what?
I was joking. I was making a joke. I was making a joke about the prosperity gospel. It clearly didn't land.
No. At least not.
Prosperity gospel is a whole other conversation. I'm completely obsessed with the history of prosperity gospel in the United States. I've read up on, anyway, different conversation. God damn it. There's like 5 different conversations I want to have at once.
Welcome to the Xenia Bridge.
So for me, that was definitely something that was like, that I really struggled with, was the idea of, as I came into adulthood and left Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then I went off to, at 18, I went off to Boston to go to college, right?
Oh, you want to talk about Catholic Whore Central? Holy shit!
But what was so great? What was so and you know, so like I'm coming into adulthood and questioning things and all of that jazz, you know, so for me, the thing that really kind of broke purity culture apart for me was when I was in the Navy. One of the things that I did was I was a victim advocate for sexual assault victims, and I eventually ran my command sexual assault prevention response program. And so I was, and my command was really unique since it is a schoolhouse and we house an A school. So we get kids straight from boot camp to
right
us.
From boot, yeah.
And so 22-year-old Maddie, every Thursday, for an hour and a half, talked to a room full of mostly boys, 18 to 19-year-old young men, right out of boot camp, and we would spend an hour and a half talking about sexual assault and consent and healthy sexual relationships.
Well, and you and I had a really interesting conversation about that particular aspect of the military, because like a while back we got into something that almost was a debate, but was more of just a heated discussion, I guess, about the sexual assault statistics that came out of
Maddie and I
the military.
On that.
But basically, the VA published a report that showed approximately 1 in 4 service members, and it didn't differentiate by gender, but it said 1 in 4 service members is an active domestic violence perpetrator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't deal with domestic violence. I dealt specifically with sexual assault, and
you dealt with sexual assault.
Right.
What's the EO? You don't get an EO complaint filed on you.
No. So that's SEMIA. So that's equal opportunity. That's actually something different.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm thinking.
So you were thinking sexual harassment.
Yes.
So I didn't handle sexual harassment. I exclusively handled sexual assault.
Okay.
Right. I exclusively dealt with sexual assault. But what would happen was, so often I would have, after I would give this talk about sexual assault, consent, what healthy sexual relationships look like, and about every other week, someone out of that group of 50 would want to come talk to me about afterwards privately. And it was so often they were disclosing for the first time childhood sexual trauma, or something that had happened to a friend or a sibling or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, just somebody that they cared about. And then also I was an on-call advocate, so I was in this position where I was as it was happening. So I was so often in a position being the first person that someone told about a sexual assault. And for me, that was sort of what broke pretty much the last straw of purity culture out of me, was this: I wish I wish the church, right? And so this is thinking Christianity, but I wish the church would care as much about whether or not the sex was consensual than whether or not it happened at all.
Yeah.
Before marriage, right? Mm-hmm. I wish we could put the time and energy and resources into, to me, what seems like where the real harm is. Because in purity culture, you're taught that before marriage between a straight man, straight woman, right? All sex is this evil, nasty, dirty,
it's terrible
thing.
And if you're horrible. A woman that engages with, hold on, Darcy, get out of the fucking cookies, for fuck's sake. The cat's on the cookies.
Yeah, but then after,
me and my kid eat cookies. It's terrible.
But then you get married. Between again, between a
straight couple.
Yes,
cis woman, cis male.
Yes, I do apologize. I'm working on learning the more correct vocabulary, and I'm just not quite there yet. I'm trying.
Well, and what's also interesting, though,
real quick, I wanted to answer Carpathia of Lilum. This is why my lipstick doesn't budge. This is the most important thing. It's Mana Lip Locked. It's a lip primer that it looks like a nude lipstick. Most important thing, Sephora matte lip color. That's how you make that work.
But I wanted to add a note to what you were saying there, Maddie, especially because I went on to Cyrus the Skeptic's channel not too long ago to try to help raise some money for Godless Cranium, who's getting kicked out of his house pretty soon. I guess his landlord sold it out from under him, and he and his partner are getting kicked out. So they're trying to raise enough money to put a down payment on a house because they just don't have the ability to find a new place this quickly during a pandemic.
Right.
But while we were on that, we were watching and going through, or at least trying to, before everything went completely off the fucking rails, a blog called Biblical Gender Roles. And there's a horrible movement within Christianity. Biblical Gender Roles, for the record, is part of my crawl of assholes for my Pissed Off Polytheist series, for people who aren't familiar with my content.
My first 3 or 4 videos on my channel.
All of Cyrus's videos on that.
The first 3 or 4 videos on my channel was from BGR, and it was 8 steps to confronting your wife's sexual refusal.
Well, and that's the thing. When you're talking about Christianity not being concerned with consent, even the ones that aren't as explicit as BGR is, and there is a whole Christian wife submission movement, with spanking and all that stuff. BGR is not out of left field there. There's this whole fucking movement. If you're in the BDSM community, it is very hard to look up sub resources and stuff that aren't tainted by Christianity. Yeah. And part of the reason for that is that, consent is assumed. By the way, that was just the very loudness of opening the door to
I didn't know if that was your house or my house. Because
that was mine.
When I got up, my kid
came in and brought me something.
My kid, this is the first time he went and got himself a bowl and poured his own cereal and poured his own milk and was just sitting there by himself getting his own. This was the first time he had done it by himself completely. And I'm super proud.
Good job. That's awesome.
He's getting big.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's an assumption that all sex outside of a marriage of a straight couple is unhealthy and bad
completely
and
evil. Just so evil. Yeah.
All sex inside of that is what is healthy and good. And so it completely denies marital rape. It completely denies
consent.
And so there's never a conversation about consent. Right. And again, I found that, again, this is what broke me out of purity culture, was I found those people. They're maybe less extreme than BGR, except for Transformed Wife. She's insane.
That bitch.
Transformed Wife is also in my crawl of assholes.
Yeah.
That cunt. Man, fuck that cunt. I got beef with that bitch. For real.
Yeah. For me, I could not find the emotional energy within myself to give one flying fuck about what happened behind closed doors between consenting adults, right? And that sounded so much healthy. And this is one of those places where I was like, look, and I prayed about this a lot. It was like, look, I might be wrong. I don't know, but I can't care about, you know,
I don't
that.
give a fuck.
Exactly. When
Wait, fuck
I'm
y'all doing in your
confronted-
motherfucking bedroom
Exactly.
between two goddamn people? Surprisingly.
Or more. I don't care.
Yeah, or more. I don't give a fuck.
Consent.
I don't give a
Right?
fuck. As long
And
as
that's
it's
the thing. So
consensual.
I wish we could talk about consent.
It's surprisingly enough, coming out of my faith, a lot of people are like, it's the hell belief that they have the hardest time letting go of. It was purity for me.
Yeah.
It was purity. It was, I think I was talking about this with Ocean when I had him on my show. It could be another interview. Same thing with Daryl Wright,
too. You did actually talk about that with Ocean when you had him on, because you guys were talking about
Daryl Wright.
Christianity.
Yeah, I talked about this with Daryl Wright too. I remember coming out of my faith and being like, okay, I don't have to adhere to this, but I'd go out on dates with guys and be like, I can't sleep with him before such and such date because then he'll never want me. And if I sleep with somebody too soon, I'm going to be alone forever because I'm undesirable at that point because I'm too fast. And
Jen, have you ever run into, for me, the thing was the latent fear of that men can't control themselves once sexually aroused. And that's, like, I'm very, very happily married. And every once in a while that fear pops up and I have to talk myself down out of it.
I have to talk myself
very
out
healthy,
of
happy marriage.
For a large part of my marriage, I found I came into my atheism very early on in my marriage. And for a large part of my marriage was just lay there and take it because that's what I need to do. Because he's gotten going and it would be wrong of me and cruel. And it wasn't, they didn't hold it over us like fear, but it was very much the, if you don't, he's going to get it somewhere else. And then you're wrong for it.
For me,
I did it out of obligation.
So what I was taught, the branch I was taught is that if again, once aroused, they lose control. So it would be, they won't get it somewhere else. They would force it on you.
We were taught slightly differently. It was never directly said, but it was heavily implied that if you were raped, you did something. You were breathing with boobs.
What were you wearing?
Yeah, it could even be you looked at them, you passed them on the street, and if you were raped, you obviously must have done something because once a man has gotten going, then it's on you to be responsible for that. Like it's your responsibility that he got going, so you have to be the one to blame.
Right. Yeah.
With us,
and that was so hard because
if you, no matter what, if your husband's up and going, it is your job. And if you don't, he's going to find it somewhere else and you can't leave him for it because it's your fault. So I spent many years laying there and taking it when I didn't want to. Many years. And I knew better, but it was still there,
Yeah. And for me, one of the things that, again, when I was serving in that victim advocate role, a lot of, especially the young women that were survivors of sexual assault, many of them were religious, and these are again, please remember that they're about 18 or 19 years old usually, because my command gets them right out of boot camp.
Right out of boot. Yeah.
And so the number of times I had to have this conversation for someone who was very religious, and telling them things like, no one can take your virginity. That's something that you can get for someone, for their, and so like this weird, like, playing into their purity culture beliefs because they were just raped. And, but the thing that they're most upset about is that now they're not a virgin.
Yeah.
And so,
now you're not a virgin. And
so saying things like that, I think were the right thing to say at the time, that things like, that's not something that anyone can take from you. That's something that you get, right? That's
well, there's also like this.
You wanna
there's
laugh,
also
though?
this reinforcement, I would say, of the purity shit in culture as well, right?
Mhm.
Like,
No, I'll throw a
Absolutely.
bomb on y'all. When I was getting ready to file for divorce, I had a child. I had been married for 8 years at that point. And my aunt tried to talk me out of it. Because who's going to want you then? You're not a virgin. You have a child. What self-respecting man is going to want you then? So you're better off just staying with your husband.
Yeah, no, that's bullshit.
And it rolled into this no self-respecting man's going to want you. And then what self-respecting man is going to raise your son if no self-respecting man's going to want you? All because I had sex and had a kid. All because I'd had sex and had a kid, and if I left my ex-husband, no respectable man is going to want me. Yeah, the chewed gum analogy. No respectable man is going to want me because not only was I not a virgin, but I had a child by somebody else.
Right.
So I'm better off to stay in an abusive marriage because at least I'm with somebody, because that's what my worth is tied to, is the dick that I'm married to.
yeah, you're not you, you're Mrs. Him.
Like,
Completely
and
unrelated.
it fucked me up
Yeah.
too, because in the military, when you're married to someone in the military, you are not identified. You are identified by the last 4 digits of their social. That's how deep that shit runs. You are not identified by your last 4 digits of your social. You're not identified by your name. They ask you who the service member is and what the last 4 digits of their social is to find you.
Jen. I was in uniform at a like doctor's appointment out in town and was asked for my husband's social because I couldn't possibly be the service member and I was wearing my goddamn uniform.
Bitch, motherfucker. I'd have smacked him with your fucking rank. Lieutenant, bitch. I'd have smacked him with rank.
I was so pissed. I
would have went home, found the pin one. You know the pin one that you put on for like dresses, that if you nail that shit in there, that shit hurts. I would have punched him in the face with that. Like,
oh no, this was a woman.
How about that? But yeah, the purity culture fucked me up. Like, even
this idea
so, I got divorced.
To
and this is 8 years later. I got divorced. 10 years later, because I didn't date for 2 years after my divorce. 10 years into my fucking atheism. And I was still worried about what I wore, if I slept with them, if I was too forward. 10 fucking years it took. Still, 10 years later.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard people in the atheist community, and I've heard people, like, especially, and, you know, I'm going to get a gigantic eye roll from the chat, but hear me out. Incels, like incel culture. A lot of incel culture is not Christian-based. A lot of incel culture is highly atheistic. However, there's pseudoscience shit that people put out there.
It would be atheistic in the fact that it's devoid of a basis in a God belief. It's very gendered.
A lot of incel culture actually actively rejects religion.
Right.
Unless you're using one particular sub-branch. Like, they actively consider it to be damaging. But here's the thing. They use pseudoscience. Like, they believe that you store the DNA of every guy you slept with inside your body, and that somehow affects things.
And that was from one bunk-ass fucking scientific study by one fucking person. And
someone please explain to me how that works.
So apparently... Okay, so it stemmed from... When you're pregnant, your child's stem cells actually can work its way into your DNA. It works its way into your bloodstream. It could work its way into your DNA. Somehow this spun to sperm. I don't know how, but somehow DNA in sperm is, you know, floating down my fucking throat and floating up my fucking ass crack to change my fucking DNA structure. Somehow, some way. And the way that incels spin it is, well, even if I get her pregnant because she has all this DNA of all these other men, my kid has all this DNA of all these other men. And I'm like, yes, the buckshot I just took to my fucking gag reflex fundamentally altered my DNA, and that's why my fucking eyes are brown now, you fucking idiot. Like, what? How? Do I grow a toe if I have too much fucking DNA? Do my nipples like move? Like what does this happen? Do I grow more hair? Do my eyes change color? Like what happens if I absorb
Jen is
more
now
DNA?
hitting New York level 1,000.
Like I can't stand because my ex-husband was like, he subscribed to this shit after I had my kid. He started on this shit after I had my kid. And I looked at him, I was like, motherfucker, you are fucking someone who lost 3 out of her 4 kids to the fucking kid's father. She pops fucking Vicodin and drinks like they're vitamins. And you're gonna sit and fucking bitch about whose DNA is fucking in where? Or are you mad that even as hard as I tried with that minuscule dick, your DNA still couldn't reach the back of my throat? Is that why you're mad? Because he did this. He's like, well, how many dudes are you fucking? And, you're absorbing all their DNA. And I told y'all my ex-husband didn't like interracial relationships. I'd be like he's 6'7" and black. That's who I'm fucking right now, okay?
Good God.
That.
Well, and that's another thing, though. That's another thing, though, right? Like, they're obsessed with that,
but
too.
I'm curious,
like, interracial
too.
relationships and shit.
I'm pansexual. So if I fuck a woman, do I get her DNA, too?
They say it's just sperm.
Okay. Yeah. Of course. Wait, you heard the story, though, that sperm don't swim now, but they barrel roll like otters? Did you hear this?
What?
Yeah, they actually found out that sperm don't swim. The way they move is they barrel roll, like how otters do.
That's actually kind of interesting.
And they do an otter crawl.
I would like a citation on that, but I'm kind of interested.
I would like a citation, but that's interesting.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. Keep talking.
Like,
I'm going to find this shit.
But, like, legit, when you're coming back to, like, incel culture, there's that. And then there's also this idea that a woman becomes devalued the more partners she's had, until the point where you hit, like, 10 or more, and then suddenly you're fucking worthless. Right? And they completely also abhor anybody who's got a kid. And so it's like, number one, if your standards are going to be like that, like, how the fuck do you ever expect to get sex? I guess no wonder you're a fucking incel. At that point, you're a voluntary celibate. Like, legit. But on top of it, like,
they could join the new IFB's dating site. Sorry, that's a real thing.
But this is my now. Granted, I didn't push my son. I fully dilated, but I didn't push my son. Mm-hmm. Y'all ever seen a baby's head? Babies got big ass motherfucking heads. They dilate to 10. We dilate to 10 fucking centimeters around, roughly that big, roughly. Mm-hmm. Right about here. Right. And then we come back, it contracts back and everything closes back up, over time. And you mean to tell me your fucking Bert number 2 pencil over sharpened 1984 looking Frobush dick is gonna fucking change the biological structure of my fucking pussy? No, don't think that highly of yourself. Just fucking don't. Do you really fucking think that there is a dick on this planet, a dick anywhere, that is going to stretch my vagina so much that it's never going to recover the way it would recover from when I pushed a fucking human out of it? Oh, what makes you think that your dick is king of all fucking kingdoms and has the ability to biologically change a human being? Your dick is not. Your dick literally looks like leftover parts that somebody threw bologna at a fucking wall and said, there it is. What makes you think something that looks like it came out of a fucking hot dog is so glorious and just so fucking gigantic and wonderful and full of this magical sticking DNA that it's going to alter biologically a function of a woman's body, that your dick and all the other dicks are going to magically make her looser?
Well,
Bitch,
also think about that for a second. It, like, biologically for a minute in terms of evolution, right? Like, we're all fans of science here, right? Like, it's literally designed to take as much as humanly possible. Who the hell thinks that it would get, like, more and more stretched out from doing exactly what it's
a pound in a pussy could take? I got stories. Bitch,
Jen, we don't need to hear them. YouTube.
I got my taint split and my shit went back. Okay, trust your dick ain't doing shit. Bitch, Jen, it ain't stretching nothing.
Jen,
shit.
YouTube.
I can't stand
Jen, there are minors in the chat.
I can't stand these motherfuckers. Oh, all the dicks you had, you're loose.
Jen, even though my channel is not for minors, there are minors in the chat. There are always minors in the chat. YouTube is a minor in the chat.
But I really think that, like, where there's so many places where purity culture has moved, like, out of strictly what you're taught, like, in a religious setting and into general culture. But I am of the opinion.
Distracting clothing choices in school, for example.
Oh, so wait. Oh, no, I want to touch on this motherfucker. I want to touch on this shit.
Jen, let Maddie talk first.
Sorry,
hold on to it. Your anger's still going to be there. I know you're going to set that fire, but let Maddie talk.
Well, okay. My very not school appropriate tank top. Right. I have so enjoyed all of the posts I've seen on social media recently that are like, okay, if you tell me you can't, if you're going to bring kids back into school during a pandemic and not require them to wear a mask because you couldn't possibly police then I want every goddamn high school girl in the fucking country to go to school in her spaghetti strap and
how you gonna sit here
and
and
her
say
goddamn mask?
We can't control kids wearing masks, but we can send a girl home for wearing spaghetti straps or a fucking skirt 2 inches above her knee.
Mm-hmm.
And
or you can get sent home. You get sent home for what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the straps are not
thick enough.
2 fingers. Right.
Yep.
You can see my bra on the side because I'm wearing a sports bra. And it cuts too low, right? Like on the side. So this is so not appropriate.
Now this is
distracting.
I got sent home. Now, mind you, I had no fucking titties growing up. I didn't get these bitches till I was like 36. Like,
oh my god, I got these at like 11.
I got pregnant and didn't even get these bitches. Like, no. So I had 2 fucking mosquito bites up on my chest in school, right? And I had a spaghetti strap. And it's New York, you know, shit gets hot. It gets a little hot, especially when you're dealing with concrete and everything else. I had little spaghetti straps on, and my shorts were 4 inches above the knee. They sent me home.
Okay.
But I was told that because it could be distraction to not only students but teachers. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me that every motherfucking man up in this building is a goddamn pedophile? Because I was 14. I was 14. Every man in this building is a goddamn pedophile and cannot do their job because they are so sexually attracted to a child.
Okay, so
that they gotta be sent home.
Did you know that in the United States, only 3 states have a minimum age for marriage?
Mm-hmm. 3.
Yeah. Let's see.
And you know what it is for every one of them? 16.
Mm-hmm. There's not a single state that has an 18 as
this happened minimum. This happened here. I've
no, Virginia, it's 18 because they got the 16 bill passed. Right. And then once the minimum marriage age of 16 passed, then they were able to but there's all these problems because minors, so let's make it 18.
So let me tell y'all about purity culture and marriage ages. Mm-hmm, so I said this before. We had a soldier here when my husband was serving who had this wife. And I'm doing the FRG shit because, we had just gotten here. He couldn't be deployed yet. And I'm like, okay, if I need to get in touch with you. And she's like, oh, I may be in class or I may be doing homework if I don't pick up the phone. So I'm thinking college. She looks young, but I'm thinking college. Yeah. Oh, what college do you go to? She still went to the high school on post. She was 16.
Wait, no, that can't.
16.
Jen, under the UCMJ, it is illegal for any service member to have sex with anyone under the age of 18.
Not if they're married.
Fuck that. Sorry.
Not if they're married.
I just scared my dog.
Not if they're married. If they are legally married, they can. If they are legally married, they can.
It's okay, Chester. Sorry,
me and my ex-husband was like,
he's a new rescue. He's really scared of loud noises.
So me and my ex-husband, now her husband was 19. She had just turned 16 a month before they got married. So we looking like the fuck, right? So he's talking to her husband and he's like, well, I had to marry her because she's back home in our state. And I don't know if she wasn't going to go fuck someone else. So I had to marry her because she was still a virgin and I wanted to still be with her. But if she had slept with someone else while I was gone to boot, I couldn't be with her. I couldn't marry her.
Oh my God.
So you got a 16-year-old little girl whose husband is overseas getting blown the fuck up in Afghanistan while she's going to prom. While she was literally going to fucking prom, her husband got hit by a fucking IED. While she was at fucking prom. Prom! And he flipped out about that too. He was like, if you don't go alone, you're not going at all. I was like, this motherfucker half a world away. Bitch, I'm bringing everyone with me. I ain't going by my damn self. But because he did not know if she was going to fuck someone else while he was in boot camp, and if she fucked somebody else, then he couldn't marry her and he really wanted to be with her. That's why he had to marry her and bring her over. You want to talk about some purity culture ass shit?
Well, and on top of it, like, you know, when you come back to the whole assumption that men can't control themselves, there's also not just this assumption that they can't, but there's this active encouragement of sexual aggression on the part of men. My favorite example is actually
it's like when they told me.
Can I finish?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, sweet.
My favorite example of this is actually in the Star Wars trilogy. It's when, like, Han Solo grabs Leia and, like, forces a kiss on her. Like, she tells him she fucking hates him, and he forces a kiss on her, and she resists and then relaxes into it. And this is the kind of message that is sent over and over and over again. And I'm, you know, I love all the guys in my chat. Like, I love you guys to death. I'm probably not talking to you at the moment. If I am, then, you know, I'm sorry. But there is a message that is said subconsciously. I'm going to say something to everybody. If you haven't seen my video on this, then go watch it. You are not immune to propaganda. And that sort of thing subconsciously influences the way you fucking think. It subconsciously influences the way that I fucking think. I still get anxious about approaching guys in any way, shape, or form forwardly with any sort of interest because, quote, you're supposed to be chaste. You're supposed to indicate interest passively. You're supposed to be chaste.
Like, and then it's like if you're rejected, then there's something wrong with you as a woman. If a man doesn't want you, what are you doing wrong as a woman?
And if she says no, it's a yes that hasn't happened yet. And that's the
50
thing.
50 Shades of motherfucking Grey. 50 Shades of Grey. That shit, I'm like, y'all, if he wasn't good looking and rich, that shit would have been called 24 hours to a restraining order, and we fucking know it.
It just would have been an episode of Criminal Minds.
Or
look, like if Christian Grey lived in a trailer, that is an episode of Criminal Minds.
Yeah, that's the episode of Criminal Minds, not a fucking trilogy, bitch.
Exactly.
There were many, many times where she told him no, and he took it as a negotiation point. No is not a fucking negotiation point, whoopee. It's like also think of the kind of microaggressions that are in Hollywood with it, where what happens? Girl turns the guy down. Guy stalks her. He shows that he follows her around school. The
boombox outside the window.
He just hounds her.
And all this shit's portrayed as romantic.
It's romantic when in fact exactly what you're doing is wearing someone down so that they're not being harassed anymore.
Like actually pretty innocent that I recently ran into. So guy friend of mine adopted a cat that happened to be pregnant when he adopted it. So then he was trying to like get rid of all the kittens. Grad students that just moved halfway across the country to Oklahoma to study meteorology often want pets.
Yeah.
So
you know something there.
Yeah. So like some of my like friends, you know, from grad school, were going to like meet the kittens and stuff like this, like super normal. And he asked one of them out, right? And like this is a great guy. Like he,
I'm digging
we're
this
really
shit out
good
of
friends.
Chester right now.
Yeah. Did you see his handsome bow tie?
I did.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's so
we
sweet.
adopted him about a month ago, and he's decided that I'm the only safe human on the planet. So I get a lot of snuggles.
I'm surprised the baby dragons haven't destroyed something yet.
She was so nervous about, because she just kind of wasn't into him, right? She was so nervous about saying no, right?
Yeah.
And so like me and some of my other friends who like are friends with this guy, had to be like, no, honey, like, he's an adult. Like, just, he's interested. If you're not, say, like, you know, hey, thanks, but no thanks, but I'm going to adopt the kitten.
Yeah.
And that will be the end of it, because he's a normal guy. You know what I mean?
He's
like,
actually have respect. He actually has respect.
Right.
But there's like, an actual reason for that fear.
Leah, I just want to address Leah Bryant. I am actually a BDSM educator. 50 Shades of Grey was the worst fucking thing to come into the kink community ever. It was the most dangerous, abusive, mind fuck of a relationship to come into the community that I've ever seen.
And it never got fucking better. Like, it didn't get better.
And okay, so I torrented the books because I was like, I'm not going to pay for this shit, but I want to see what the hype is. So I fucking totally pirated them.
Not only is it badly written, and not only did it not get better, but like it actually actively demonizes the kink community by making BDSM all about his fucking mommy issues.
It was all about his mommy issues. It was all about his, and the number one thing, there was a point where, I've had that happen. I have had guys on Tinder, like, find my channel. I have had guys on Tinder find my social media, and through there they tried to find my kid's school to try to catch me up at my kid's school, this is why I keep shit with my kid locked down. They tried to find my kid's school. They tried to go through court records to see if they could find my address from Tinder, because I like guys that I've swiped left on. Guys that I didn't even swipe right on. They would go and stalk my social media and then try to find other ways to contact me. There was a scene in 50 Shades where you could tell this was no longer a scene but punishment. And she was crying. She was crying the safe word in tears. She was in tears. No self-respecting dom would have ever let a sub get to that point.
Well, and not only that, but there was never any aftercare for any scene, anything.
No, well, okay, I don't need aftercare like that. Like,
I absolutely do, especially if shit gets really rough, especially with punishment. I need it. Like, yeah, like the point is that she did in the book, and he didn't give it to her. And
right. So, but I'm saying that I'm not the type.
It's not about needing it or not. It's about the fact that she did need it and he never gave it.
Right. So what I was saying was I'm not the type. So I didn't immediately pick up on that. Because I'm like, my aftercare is literally roll over and watch Family Guy with me. Like, while I eat a sandwich and shut the fuck up and don't talk to me. Like, that's my aftercare, is I need you not to speak right now. He never did aftercare with her, and it was clear that this was psychologically fucking her up, because she would go through these periods of she didn't know if this was a scene or if this is how he really felt about her, because he was mad at her. And when you never, ever, ever, ever enter a scene when there is a fight occurring, if there are tensions happening, you do not, that's so unsafe. It's so, so fucking unsafe. This was not a BDSM, that he laid down a contract. The contract does not make a BDSM commitment. There was zero, like, to the point he broke into her fucking house and then pulled her shirt over her eyes and fucked her. Like, bitch, I'd have shot you.
Well, and I completely agree with Witch there. Yeah. Like, that is absolutely true.
Well,
but not only that, but he stalks her. He puts an application on her phone without her consent to track her down when she goes out to
breaks into her apartment. And yeah, like, which is right. He sat down at a restaurant with her. He's got the contract out. She said no to quite a few things. He took no as a negotiation point. And she felt he was so powerful and so good at negotiations that she felt powerless to negotiate her own.
Well, and 50 Shades of Grey is a shining example of how the rich can utterly fuck consent. And that's the thing. Like what you guys said earlier, if he was in a trailer park, that would have been an episode
that shit would have been, 24 hours to a restraining order. Not 50 Shades of Grey.
Like, Christianity claims the meek shall inherit the earth, but let's fucking face it, the rich get off scot-free because of this same shit. Because Joe Bob in the trailer park is going to have a completely different attitude from the church fathers than, like, their wealthy donor that just gave them basically a new
and we can look at this with purity culture, too. You become assaulted by somebody that has wealth or is rich. and they hire this fucking dream team. And what's the very first thing that the dream team's going to go for? How were you acting? Were you drunk?
What were you wearing?
Not even what were you wearing. Didn't you have a friendship with this person beforehand? Are you sure that friendship wasn't flirtatious? They will immediately attack, period.
Did you lead him on?
Did you lead him on?
Right. Well, and that's what's so difficult for survivors of sexual assault. One of the difficult things is that like sexual assault is sort of, to a large degree, one of the very few violent crimes where you have to, where the survivor has to prove that the crime occurred, right? Does that make sense?
You go on. It's like you go on trial. The other person doesn't go on trial. You go on trial.
You go on trial, right?
To see if the crime occurred, not to see if this is the person who committed the crime. Because if we were to use the example of like murder, right? Like, or no one, or attempted murder, even, let's go with that. Like, there's no debate as to whether or not a crime occurred.
Mm-hmm.
The question is this particular individual guilty of committing that crime? And so, but with sexual assault, one of the things that comes, and I think this is really deeply rooted in purity culture, both in the religious and secular aspects of it, is that, and this is the dichotomy of, we can in fact fully believe the victim, right? That this is a thing which happened to you, and accept that in our judicial system you are innocent until proven guilty. So, but just because.
But the opposing lawyer doesn't get to fucking attack the victim on their freaking history, and like it again. It's like we put victims on trial.
And I have personally seen many cases where they will go after a woman's history. Well, you've slept with this kind of person before, and you've engaged in this kind of behavior. Very much you've engaged in BDSM, so why, was it BDSM or was it really rape? And if you've engaged in BDSM, then why didn't you find rape a turn on? And this happens, there are women who, and it's valid, have rape kinks and trigger warning for anyone right now, but there are women who do have rape kinks and do have rape fantasies, and that's valid, and because it's being done by two consensual adults. But the minute they find out something like that, it's, well, this is your fantasy, so why didn't you enjoy it?
One of my favorite things to say in those trainings that I would give to 50 young men right out of boot camp was maybe they were out intending to find someone to have sex with that night. That doesn't mean they wanted to have sex with you.
That doesn't mean it's you.
Right, exactly. Just because you can, a person is perfectly capable of going out desiring to hook up with someone. That doesn't mean they're willing to hook
this
up with
happens
anyone.
A lot to me. The minute and it's, I've never had a woman or non-binary person approach me like this. It has only been cis men. When I'm like, I'm pansexual, and I turn them down, but I thought you were pansexual. I'm like, no, gender doesn't play a role in my attraction. That doesn't, you're still a piece of shit, and I don't want to fuck you, okay? That doesn't mean I like you. Yeah, that doesn't mean I want to fuck you.
I'm very boring. I'm very straight. I'm really boring, but like, that's okay. That's just who I am. But like, just because I am sexually attracted to men doesn't mean I'm sexually attracted to every single man I see. Like, it's the same thing. Like, for you with a pansexual, just because like gender isn't a thing that affects
because
how
I don't have a limit
attracted.
on it. That must mean I have no standards and I want to fuck everyone. And it's like,
well,
no, I'm actually super selective in who I sleep with. Like, I have a super rigid kind of what will turn me on. And if you slip outside of it, like, you're fucking doomed. Like, it's like, what? No.
Bring this conversation around to another form of allyship, where this isn't necessarily like theist, atheist, or whatever have you.
People who have different beliefs, they are done.
Did it. Nailed it. But like, if you want to do like masculine,
a polytheist, a monolatrist, and an atheist walk into a bar, and the topic is boobs.
Clearly.
And welcome to the Xenia Bridge.
A great place where you can have allyship of like one of, I think, actually the failings of how we deal with sexual assault. Like, we treat it as a woman's issue, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because, okay, so in the United States, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 33 men have been a victim of sexual assault in their lifetime. That's actually the statistics for attempted or completed rape, not sexual assault in general. So, because that can include groping and other things like that. But so for attempted or completed rape, it's 1 in 5 women, 1 in 33 men. Oh gosh, I think it's 95% of the time, the assaulter is a cis male, right? And so that does not mean that the majority, so this is a tricky thing, because the subset of cis males who commit sexual assault is very, very small, because this is a crime that you get away with a lot.
So yeah, they're not counting it as a crime because is it being reported? Is it
exactly?
Right. And are they being found guilty? Are they being found that it was a crime?
Less than 2% of people who commit sexual assaults will spend a day in jail.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
and a large part of those 2% are actually child assault cases, because they will more easily convict on a child sexual assault case than an adult.
Because there's an assumption of like innocence on the child's part, which isn't granted to adult women.
Yes.
Or to adults. But like, this is again, if we're gonna talk about allyship, like I think cis men or more masculine presenting people are some of the best allies you can have in combating sexual assault, because they're in the spaces where there's like the grooming behavior or the behavior of someone who is an assaulter, who is a criminal, right? Who does behaviors to like identify somebody who could be a potential victim. Right. And they're much more likely to like talk about that or overtly exhibit some of those behaviors, like singling someone out, using like dehumanizing or devaluing language, those like inappropriate jokes, rape jokes, things like that, used against a specific individual to like isolate them. Yeah. So like,
I moved on again. Like it's like, bitch.
If you're a guy in that situation where someone's talking like that, that's a spectacular place to exercise allyship. And how you like intervene is completely up to you. My favorite way to combat sexism in the workplace, at least, is humor. I just like to throw it back at them.
No, I do the questioning when they joke like that. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I don't get the joke.
Can you explain it to me? I don't understand.
That? This is where I'm losing the point. And as they have to explain that they're a piece of shit, it starts dawning on them. I do want to. Bloodfoot and Steel said, Aliakai will be right back, so there's nobody in control of the comments right now. Another side of the same problem is when men try to report being raped or assaulted, they are rarely believed and often are mocked and shamed and humiliated for being weak. So
that's actually. Can I talk to that point?
Yeah, I was gonna say quick that this comes from men can't control themselves, and it's obviously the women's fault. So by not believing men, and because then that puts you on the level of a woman who is weaker and is obviously the reason for turning on a man.
So one of the things that is interesting when you're dealing with sexual assault in the military is that, so military is about 25% female, 75% male.
Yeah.
So there are more male victims of sexual assault in the military than
just
there
by
are
the numbers,
female. Just by the numbers. So the way that goes is a female is statistically more likely to be assaulted than a male, but there are so many more men that there are more male victims.
Right.
But 80% of reports are of female victims. So male sexual assault in the military is grossly underreported, and male sexual assaults in general are grossly underreported. So that is something that I was actually really, like, I was proud of at my command, was that we worked very hard at lowering barriers for male reporting. And we, at my command, which had 5,000 people, we had 50-50 male-female reporting numbers. And so
that's great that people felt comfortable enough to,
yeah. And so that was something that I was really proud of with that program that I ran. And that's, again, a place of allyship of we can't, like, again, when we paint issues of, and this is for everything from purity culture to sexual assault, because these are all on a spectrum,
right?
With one through line, when we paint these as women's issues, we neglect both our male allies, and we neglect male or masculine presenting victims, and both of those things are, like, not good, and so. The barriers for reporting for men are more things like, I should have been able to fight them off, right?
Because you weren't masculine enough, and therefore,
and it's not
feminized.
It's not even about that either, especially with pedophilia. And I'm going to use that term when it, like, an older woman, especially teachers, because this happens a lot to male students, like, in terms of like the percentage of female perps, you're going to see a lot of teachers here. Like, there's this assumption, especially with teenage boys, that the guys must have liked it, that it's a fucking dream for them. They completely ignore the power dynamic.
Where were these teachers when I was in school?
Right. Well, and they're supposed to want it.
They're supposed to be this super spread this seed, because remember, men can't control themselves.
So women and girls are supposed to not want it, right? And if we behave in any way which is sexual, then we're
all right. I'm gonna have to address something. That Leia
real
said.
Quick.
Okay,
I sent the link.
I need.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I need to address something that Leia said. Leia, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't give a fuck, like, what you think about with guns and stuff. If a man is physically stronger and he knows what the hell he's doing, he can get that shit out of your hands. And part of the reason that I say that with this is because of the fact that perpetrators get guns out of male hands all the fucking time with home invasions. If you have a gun in your house, you are more likely to have it turned on you during a home invasion than vice versa. And if that's the case and you are not trained on top of it in self-defense, that gun is coming out of your hands and might end up with a bullet in your head.
So I'm
not saying that this is universal for all women. I'm not saying that all women are automatically weaker to all men. But what I am saying is that a gun may not make near as much of a difference as you think in a confrontation like that.
Yeah, Maddie, go. After Maddie, I'll go. Go ahead.
So another really important thing to remember is that when someone is in that situation, right, their goal, right, and this is a very primitive instinct, like the primitive instinct that takes over is, my goal in this situation is to survive, right? And so you get into, normally we say fight or flight response, but there's actually a third option that's been studied since World War II. This is flight, it's flight, fight, or freeze.
Or freeze.
Or freeze. So this was first observed and studied in, so these were World War II soldiers who found themselves in a situation where it was like, shoot, like the enemy was in front of them. They were effectively bayonet to bayonet. It was shoot or die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they found themselves unable to move. Right. They were in a life or death situation, and they found with a gun in their hands, and they were unable to pull the trigger because they were in this fight, flight, or freeze.
I've been there. I've been in life-threatening situations like that. I found out I am a fight, although there have been times where it was a freeze for me. Right.
And it does depend on situation. It's not something that any individual can control.
It's a matter of how your adrenaline kicks in that triggers your brain.
Exactly. Your body takes over. and is doing its best to make you survive. So this idea of, well, did you fight back, or even did you say no, are both terrible questions to ask, because that is not always something a victim is capable of doing.
Right, and we've been programmed in society to say, well, this is how men are, women are supposed to lay there and take it. So if you're approaching being sexually assaulted, years of programming since for as long as you can remember are telling you it's your job to lay there and take it. Chances are you're not going to fight back, because survival is going to tell you you're supposed to lay there and take it. He gets what he wants and he'll go away.
Right.
Now.
Exactly. And
I am a 2A supporter.
Survive.
I am a 2A supporter. I support the right to own guns. I live next to a military base. If somebody were to break into my home, these men are not only trained to disarm me, they are trained to evade gunfire.
But also, like,
that a gun is not always the safest option. I'm not going to sit here and say that it is. And I own them.
Yeah.
I own them. I have a carry permit for me. I know, though, that while it could be used,
I cited three
not
different
going
articles.
to be. Right, like, well, I know, yes, I would like to think that I would use my firearm if I needed to. I know there's no guarantee that I'm going to. And I know there's no guarantee that in that moment, I'm going to forget my training. And I'm going to go for the first thing that's going to cause me to survive. So, Leah, no, guns don't always work. And saying something like, strength is one thing, guns are forever, that's victim blaming shit. Because if somebody doesn't have a gun on them and cannot fight off her attacker, you just blamed that person for not being able to fight off their attacker and have been attacked. That's victim blaming shit. And because you're implying that if you couldn't fight off your attacker, that's something wrong with you. You should have been more prepared. You should have had a gun. You should have done this, and you wouldn't have been attacked.
And that's one of the things, like, if our goal is to support survivors of a sexual assault and help prevent things from happening in the future, like, these are really things we need to understand. And these are not conversations that are generally had about, like, well, what is the mindset when you're going through that? And one of the stories that I would tell when I would give these trainings was of a story of an armed cop who was raped while on patrol by two men.
Yeah.
Right. He was armed. He was a police officer. Right. And so this is a story that I very intentionally tell. One, to try to illustrate that anyone can be a victim. And again, in this goal of lowering barriers for male victims reporting. And then also understanding that, like, you can have all the training in the world, and that doesn't, the only thing that can prevent a sexual assault from happening is the person that was going to commit it choosing to not. That is literally the only thing that
many sexual assaulters are in a position of power over their victims, whether it be in the correction system, whether it be at a job placement, whether it be in life.
Well, and on top of it, like, with domestic violence, this is a statistic that I have definitely cited repeatedly. Domestic violence with a gun in the home, it is far more likely to be turned on the domestic violence victim. In fact, an increase in gun ownership has been shown consistently across many studies to increase domestic violence fatality rates.
Leah, you're not getting the point. Be prepared if you can. You're not understanding the point. Your body has a natural reaction of how it's going to react in a situation.
Everybody thinks they're going to be the magic good guy.
Yeah, be prepared if you can. I'm a pepper spray. There is no being prepared. And turning around and telling someone, well, were you prepared, is victim blaming. You are literally sitting there blaming someone for something that their body naturally fucking did. I'm saying be prepared if you can. Some people can't be. Some people can't carry pepper spray. Some people don't have the financial means or the legal means to do that. It doesn't mean that they have the fucking right to be chastised if they were fucking assaulted.
Well, and in some states and cities, you need a concealed weapons permit to carry pepper spray. Like, there are places that I've lived where that is the case.
Yeah.
Because it's considered a biological weapon.
To bring this back around, I think that...
or a chemical weapon,
again, this is where we have put the responsibility of sexual assault prevention
on the victims.
Onto potential victims, right? As opposed, so it's you need to make sure that you are not the one who is assaulted, right?
Don't be the one that's assaulted.
We can do things to help protect ourselves, right? But that doesn't prevent you from becoming a victim. And two, it places the responsibility on either the victim or the potential victim,
right,
as opposed to on the assaulter. And so if you want to talk about prevention, we have to talk about
teaching fucking people not to assault other people, not prevent yourself from a fucking assault.
And honestly, more effective training is bystander intervention, of equipping people to step in.
Well, and before we get close to wrap up, because we're getting into the last 20 minutes of the show, I want to times 1,000 this for Carbuckle. I have been a victim of domestic violence multiple times in my life. Like, I grew up a victim of domestic violence because, child abuse is domestic violence. It's classified as that under the law. I grew up, I went straight out of that into an ex who was horribly abusive to me. Many of you people know that my ex went to jail because of it, because they broke a cereal bowl over my head. Like, that's a thing that happened. What I will fucking tell you is that even if I had a gun, and even if I didn't have the issues that I've got now, if my partner was getting ready to attack me and I had that gun pointed at them, I would not be able to pull the fucking trigger. I cared about them. I fucking loved my partner. And most people who are abused, it's not like most sexual assaults are just some random dude walking into your fucking house.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna ask Leah a question real quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask Leah a question real quick. I was raped repeatedly in a systematic environment. What exactly could I have done there to be prepared? What could I have done then to prevent that? And let me know. Let me know how all of a sudden I'm expected to be prepared in an environment that I can't be prepared in. I don't understand why it's hard for you to sit and see that is victim blaming, and you're telling people it is on you as the victim to make sure you are not victimized. It is not about that. It is about teaching people not to be motherfuckers that assault other people. You're going to double down on this shit. And I want you to tell me where in that environment I could have been prepared. Then why the fuck are you even bringing it up? You are literally telling victims to prepare themselves to not be attacked. So I think you should take your fucking hands off the keyboard for a few goddamn minutes, rewind this shit back, and take another listen before you start doubling fucking down and running your goddamn mouth.
So yeah,
and I would like to, shift away from that topic for just a minute. Number one, because we're getting heated. Number two, because we're getting close to wrap up. But I do think that what Heracles brings up here is really important. Toxic masculinity, especially when it comes to people who are ace or demi, which one of my partners
Hold on,
is
Leah,
demi.
shut the fuck up or leave. For real. Because you're bringing on shit that's going to piss off a lot of fucking people here. Like I said, take your hands off the fucking keyboard, sit the fuck down, shut your mouth for 5 fucking seconds and not trying to push your fucking agenda and learn some shit. Period. I'm not gonna sit here and have somebody sit here in a fucking place where there have been fucking assault victims to hear this shit. Well, I was prepared. Well, be prepared. I'm not going to sit here and allow you to make people feel like less because no matter how much they were prepared, they were still fucking assaulted or couldn't be prepared. And now feel like there was something that they did wrong and that they're being judged for that. Sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up for 5 minutes.
I'm going to bring this back to the story of, imagine you're a police officer. You are armed with a taser and a gun. And this man, right, with all of the training in the world and all...
Somebody mute her, because I'm sorry. Somebody mute her, because I'm going to lose my motherfucking mind real quick.
Is still, and was still the victim of sexual assault. And, I heard this man tell his story, And, what he said was actually the worst part of it was when he went back to work and was asked things like, well, why didn't you stop it? Mm-hmm. Didn't you have a gun? Why did you let them get your weapon away from you? If you wanted that to happen, didn't you? And those are the things that his coworkers said to him, and that was for him worse than the assault itself, was coming back into a place that was supposed to be supportive. And this plays into toxic masculinity. He was supposed to have been the big, strong man. He was supposed to have been able to handle anything in front of him. And yet he was a victim of sexual assault. And
this is another good example here, Blood, Sweat, and Steel. My point was that the poor reaction to men reporting sexual assault and attack. Men get mocked as a result of a toxic narrative placed on men by men. And, that's what I was talking about earlier when I talked about teenage boys getting assaulted by teachers. Oh, he fucking enjoyed it, ha, ha, ha. No, he didn't. I am... As a feminist, and I'm going to say this, as a feminist and a proud SJW, because that ain't a fucking insult. If I'm a fucking warrior, that ain't an insult. That's a badge of pride. As a fucking feminist, I stand with male sexual assault victims. Yeah. I absolutely will fight as fucking hard for you. AFAB, AMAB, I don't care what your gender identity is. If you come to me, no matter what your goddamn gender identity is, and you tell me someone has hurt you, I stand with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And y'all want to talk about what feminism is? It's about equality. It's not about putting women over a pedestal. It's not about degrading men. It's about giving equal treatment on both ends. Men should be treated as equally as women. Women should be treated as equally as men, including victims.
Yeah, and so believe victims and avoid re-victimization, which is asking dumbass questions like, why didn't we fight them off? Why weren't you better prepared? Mm-hmm. Because those things are often more harmful because they cause someone to have to over and over and over relive a trauma. Don't be an ass.
Heracles was talking about demisexual and ace men, and this is going to be my last point before we start the wrap up questions, because we're coming up on the last 15 minutes. But one of my partners is demisexual. I'm not going to tell you which one it is because it's up to them to talk about it.
I'm getting messages about that barrel roll sperm from 3 people, and now they're like, "Was this the one? Can you post that, please?" Sorry.
In terms of demisexuality, men are very much punished for it because it's assumed to be a female thing. It's assumed women bond with their hearts, men bond with their dicks. And you have somebody
women are mental and men are visual.
Can I just say that's bullshit? I love my husband so much. He is the most romantic person on the planet, right?
Meanwhile, I'm if you write me a fucking song, I'm gonna puke. I want to look at something pretty. I'm like the pretty looker. I'm your look will get my attention.
Okay, I'm more look, if you want me to get real excited, do the fucking dishes for me.
I'm build some shit, build a deck, fix a tire, do some shit where I can watch your muscles just glisten up in the sun and shit.
Yeah. My husband fixed our fence and used a sledgehammer. It was great.
But on the subject of asexuality, though, men, people who identify as men, or even AMAB people, those people are automatically pressured to be hypersexual because it's assumed that they should be because of the junk they were born with. Yeah. And that is incredibly fucking harmful. That is extremely invalidating. There's this assumption that you cannot possibly be ace if you were born with testes. That's just a thing.
Yeah, you were born with testes, so therefore you should literally want to fuck every hole that you see. It doesn't matter if it's attached to a human. It's just a hole. Because you're not supposed to have control over your arousal if there's a cylindrical open object in front of you.
Right. Wait, which character is that? Is it Nick in Big Mouth? Have y'all watched Big Mouth on Netflix?
I cannot stand the art style. I just can't watch it because the art is just abhorrent to me.
okay, it's a bunch of middle schoolers all hitting puberty, and they all get puberty monsters.
Oh,
and
God.
Jen, you need to watch this. I understand if you can't handle the art style, but like, there's
I'll
one
deal
boy...
with the art style, but this just sounds like, Jesus Christ, could this have gotten worse? They get puberty monsters?
Yeah, well, it's kind of great because it's a way of like personifying puberty, and so there's like a girl who's like puberty monster is like telling her to yell at her mom, right, and call her by her first name. Use a name against her.
I gotta watch this shit.
It's glorious. There's like a boy who like just is completely like if he's aroused by anything with a curve, right? He's just.
Well, Ariana, people hit puberty in middle school. I was 9 when I got my period. I was 12, 10, in between 11 and 12 when everything else started catching up.
Okay, I got my first period at church camp. Between when I was going into 5th grade, between 4th and 5th grade. So I was 9. Yeah, that's when I got my first period.
I was 9.
We are in the last 10 minutes.
We are.
Need to start wrapping up.
We keep going.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I love somehow, Allie, that you are the ADHD wrangler tonight.
All the time.
Every show, like Jen is so much worse than me in some ways. Like with this show, it's. I told you two were gonna get on like a fucking house on fire. I warned you both. Neither of you believed me. You guys are gonna be like the best of friends.
It's like, and yeah, Allie's got a. This is why I do better with a co-host, because somebody can.
I got Jen's number. All right, I know exactly who she's gonna get along with.
She's like,
Jen is me, but more jaded. Like legit, the two of us. Everybody.
That's
thinks
just because of how much older I am.
They don't know me.
That's just because of how much older I am.
Well, let's face it, Jen. Everybody on Earth thinks I'm fucking nicer. That's just because they don't know me.
Well, once you reach my age, you'll be just as fucking jaded as I am. Trust me. It's just age.
Age and treachery shall triumph over youth and skill.
But age and a lot of bad dick.
We have our second theist on the show ever, so you get to ask the opening question tonight.
I do. What can atheists do to be better allies to theistic communities?
When we're fighting hegemony specifically.
Huh?
I said when we're fighting hegemony specifically because we're talking to a Christian for once. Like this is the first time. So if we are fighting the same enemy, even though they're people who wear the same labels. So this is a really unique conversation.
That's super. Like I'm out of this motherfucker. I'm like, nah, we don't shop at that store. So yeah. No, that's not our whole food.
Russ is right.
We're at the other one.
Okay, Russ, your guys' show, like, it's gonna be your guys' show, and the two of you are just gonna atheist the fuck out, like, bitching about anti-theists, and that's gonna be the goddamn show. Like, that's just gonna be what it is.
Like 2 hours. Allie's just gonna call time during the show. But yeah, what can fucking atheists do to stop being such assholes to theists?
Socialist Dragon, I'm an Athenian Reconstructionist.
I think this is something that probably both of our communities could do better at, and that is to not try to evangelize. Right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and try to convince either of you that like my faith is the one correct faith. And I would also. I think you see a lot from the atheist community, especially I think those that broke away from more like fundamentalist Christian and evangelical faith, where they carry with them the desire to evangelize. They've just changed what they are evangelizing to.
Oh, I got a whole episode on that, boo. Shit. I got 2 episodes on that if you want to go watch that.
And so I think there are so many things that like you and I can work on together and agree on, right? And it doesn't require either of us to try to convince the other that our stance on a faith belief is incorrect. And I think there's a lot more.
Unless you want to sit and bring the topic to me and be like, let's fucking hash this out, then okay. We don't need to bring that shit up if we're not talking about it.
Right. But I also have no desire to do that. But I am the heretical Christian, which is why we're friends. And so I think
you have to remember I've done call-in shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think both that's something that, like, broadly the Christian community and broadly the atheist community, if we want to work together on, say, like, social justice issues, or even just like climate issues or political issues,
right.
or you know, for fuck's sake, supporting victims, trying to prevent sexual assault, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, that would be a good one.
I mean, biblical gender roles clearly doesn't agree on that, and neither does the transformed wife.
That's
right. And
bitch. Fucking
God, okay, I so struggle with this because I hate the no true Scotsman fallacy, right? And so I really do struggle with this because I am a Christian, right? That is my faith. And they would also claim that same title, and I do not want to be associated with them, but I also don't want to be guilty of the no true Scotsman fallacy of saying that, no, you're not really a Christian. But I will firmly say that what they say and what they do, I find abhorrent, and I find very against
very much how I come out and say
of the God that I worship.
Certain way anti-theists are acting is fucking disgusting, and I'm sorry, but not all atheists are falling under this banner. I'm not going to say that you're not a true atheist. However, please know that we fall under different banners, and not all of us are like this.
Well, and it's the same way that I feel about Focus, right? But like, I think if I am not too far out, we've talked about this. You've expressed to me that you feel like progressive Christians need to do a better job of calling out this bullshit in your guys' community themselves. Self-policing within Christianity is a major fucking problem. And this is part of the reason why atheists and polytheists tend to, we need to team up to fight this alongside folks like you who are willing to acknowledge us as being
holy fuck,
valid,
they won't even prosecute fucking child molesters in their ranks. You want to talk about bad at fucking self-policing? They protect child molesters in their fucking ranks.
So, and on top of it, they will apologize for that. Like, they will, they'll either know true Scotsman, or they'll still back the people on the grounds that they are still worshiping the same God. And this is something that, like, polytheists, we generally don't fucking do. Like, we will kick you the fuck out of our community if you're a fucking focused. Like,
y'all don't fuck around with that shit.
No, we don't. Like, on Thursday, if y'all weren't here for the goddamn bar crawl, go back on my Twitter. You'll find it buried underneath all the dumpster fires. There was a gigantic, pagan bar crawl where every single one of the Reconstructionist creators in my circle, we all did a video on folkism. We all basically gave a gigantic fuck folkism to our communities. We all debunked it. We all fought it. We all basically said, this is not what paganism is. This is you putting your racist bullshit in our faith. Get the fuck out. And Christians need to do the same thing, and not enough of them are.
Right. Yeah. And I'm gonna quote scripture for a second. Sorry, it's in James. I forget the verse. And
dude, I've quoted the Bible at Christians all the fucking time. Like, you can quote the Bible to get almost any position you want. Like, it's one of those beautiful things about it.
You can, but like, I think the Book of James is grossly underutilized. That's where the verse, "True religion is this, to care for widows and orphans in their distress," right? James is a great book, but one of the things that it says is, you say that you have like faith. It says, "Show me your faith without works," right? And it's kind of this challenge of, so, sorry, I fucked up. I can't remember the verse now. Never mind.
It's like faith without works is dead. I know that is one of those quotes. Faith without works is dead.
Works is dead. And then,
Blood, Sweat, and Steel. I think every community should do something similar to Declaration 127.
Well, I mean, in Hellenism, we've got the Xenia Declaration in Hellenism, like that's ours, and a lot of big organizations did. One of my favorites didn't, and I'm still fucking mad at them for that because it's led by a bunch of boomers, and because of that, I've withdrawn a lot of my support from them.
No, like, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, if I ever decide to get an actual organization going and get the fuck up off my ass about it, I'm going to put together something very similar to a Declaration 127 for that organization.
Well, and one of my favorite things about Episcopalianism, which is a large organized religion, right, which is a subset of Christianity, but one of the things I'm incredibly proud of Episcopalianism for is about 2 years ago, there was a priest of an Episcopal church in upstate New York who was refusing to perform same-sex marriages, and he was removed from his church by the bishop. And so I'm very proud of that, of when those things are seen. at least within Episcopalianism, you see leadership stepping in and taking care of it. But, when you have 1,001 denominations, I can personally call out, say, like, NIFB and biblical gender roles, but I'm not a member of those groups, right? I'm not a Baptist. I'm not, but if you are a Baptist, like, and the Southern Baptist Convention, which sets so much of the, like, doctrine for Baptists, like, push for shit in that. Anyway.
All right, we're wrapping up, guys. Thank you so much for coming, Maddie.
You didn't ask.
My question? Maddie actually answered my question before I got a chance to ask it, to be honest. Like, you answered my question. My question is, well, what can pagans and other theists do? But, like,
and
you already answered that question as part of the first one.
Ocean, this motherfucker. This motherfucker. You piece of shit. We're fucking ending, and he stumbles in.
We talk about the bar crawl, and he comes.
No, get the fuck out before you start breaking shit. Get the fuck out. You know what? We made this whole fucking stream with that shit fucking breaking. Take you and your fucking router and get the fuck out before it breaks. I'm not. You know what? Done. Bye.
All right, guys. So thank you guys so much. Thank you. Yes, I meant Hellenian. But like. Thank you so much again, Maddie, for coming on. You promised the after party potentially if you were feeling up to it, talking about your dissertation and your work and I guess Arctic ice sheets. So this is going to be interesting if you're up to it. As always, you're not pressured to go in. There's no pressure at all. But if you want to, it's open to you. I know you're already in the Discord because you hang out with me there all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, I gotta.
You guys want to talk
my
battery's
about to die.
Sorry.
So I'll go, I gotta plug in. I'm gonna get a goddamn beer.
I made
Sorry, after this
my next up.
This is a great stream. I get a fucking beer.
Mood I'm in. I may record my next pre-record right after this because I might as well just fucking roll on this mood. So fuck you. Get out.
But again, thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me. Link is in the description to Maddie's channel. Again, she's an excellent science communicator.
Allie, what you got coming up?
What do I have coming up? On Thursday, I'm going to be doing a video on Kadis, which is the Hellenic concept of reciprocity. It's a little more complicated in some ways than the heathen concept just because we have more information on it. So there's a lot more detail that I can kind of go into in the way that it works and the way that it was considered, because the word Kadis itself, even, as I talk about at the opening of the video, is complicated as fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, but guys, I've read part of this script and it's fucking beautiful. So be pumped up for this video on Thursday for the bar crawl.
I worked really hard on the passage trying to define what Kadis is, etymologically, and what came out like poetry, and hail Hermes and the Mosai for their glorious, glorious inspiration on that. Thank them so much for those things. Again, I'm a pagan. I'm sorry to my atheists in my audience, but I'm going to identify things from that perspective.
Right,
that is a thing. But I've got that coming up, and then this coming Monday, if I recall correctly, we've got a special guest on that you invited. Yeah, you invited Jen.
Dude.
We're going to be talking about purity culture all over again, but with somebody who used to work in an industry that is often shit on by folks that are obsessed with purity culture. So you want to talk about that? Because that's
Erin
your
Lewis, the lovely Erin Lewis, who I can't remember the name of her book, but she is a former stripper who got into the atheist activism scene and talks a lot about purity culture and, how to kind of take control as a woman of this purity culture. I had Erin on my show, and we had a really enlightening conversation on feminism and being heard as women.
Yep.
Amazing.
And as soon as we were talking about it this week, you were like, we need to get her on. So she's going to be on next Monday. What have you got coming up?
So if y'all don't follow pop culture, Cardi B released a video called WAP. Stands for wet ass pussy. And all these neckbeard motherfuckers are coming out about being a whore and being a slut, and she's got this fucking catsuit on, right? It's all leopard, but her breasts are completely cut out and they're covered with pasties, and she's got them out, they're front and center, and they're talking about how much she's a whore and everything else. So this video is going to be titled Owner of a WAP. You guys can kind of get where this is going.
Like I said, this interview being what it was like perfectly fucking timed. Who you got coming on Friday?
I have my Nick Fish interview to discuss is the United States pluralistic or secularist?
I am excited for this. We have talked about this. This is an awesome topic. You guys want to talk allyship? Like, when we talk about one of the reasons pagans and atheists need to be allies, it's because pagans are pushing for a pluralistic culture and atheists should too.
Nick Fish is the president of American Atheist, and American Atheist is the leading secular organization for politics and law in America. So I'm going to have Nick come on. This was supposed to be last week's interview, but I got some shitty undercooked ham from fucking Cracker Barrel and got food poisoning. So kind of got rescheduled. So, but yeah, I've got the owner of a WAP and then pluralism coming up this week.
Maddie, you just published what you said you're most proud of as far as your videos, right? Like you put out the one about mental health and college.
I did. So my latest video, I love alliteration, if you haven't figured that out by my channel title. So I started a series called Gaming Grad School, where the idea is to address questions about hey, should I go to grad school? How do I pick an advisor? And different stuff like that. But for the first video, I did one that was about self-care, especially for everybody who is going off to college or grad school and maybe moving across country in the middle of a pandemic, and how do you take care of yourself and be so that you can do the awesome kick-ass science or whatever it is that you're studying. So it's a lot about self-care. And then I've got coming up, I'm very excited. So videos on my channel come out Sundays at 2 p.m. So they're normally science explainer videos, but I'm gonna do a recorded interview that I edit. A couple friends of mine who are, they both just defended their PhD in meteorology within a month of each other. They've been married about a year. They're the cutest couple, and they're both gonna talk about their PhD work. And they both they both do operational meteorology with severe weather and tornadoes. So, so they're
my
both
WAP
going to be
is
talking
pluralistic.
about.
Oh, go ahead, Maddie. I've
Sorry,
got an answer question for that after Maddie.
So I'm gonna have an interview with some real life scientists who are gonna talk about the work that they've done to increase our ability to warn people when tornadoes are coming.
I love that.
So that'll be fun.
And yes, my WAP is pluralistic.
All right. So
it's
with that,
definitely a good follow-up.
With that, we've got we're 7 minutes over. Thank you again so much, Maddie, for coming in. For those of you who are not already a member of the Discord, yes, I absolutely did that on purpose.
Oh my god! No, I'm looking at the comments.
I have not looked at the comments or the chat this whole time, and I think I'm probably better off for it.
Thank you again so much for coming in. For those of you who are not already members of my Discord, in the description below is a link. It is an allyship space, not exclusively a pagan space, though we do have rooms for a bunch of different pagan religions. I'm not going to say denominations because paganism is not a religion. It's a bunch of different religions that are just under a label, right? But for those of you who are interested, it sounds like Jen and I are probably going to be there, though Jen may be a little bit later.
Yeah, because I'm rolling on this, so I talk about my WAP in a good angry way against incels and neckbeards. And
you just get mad after every show. It doesn't matter how amazing the show is. You just get mad after every show. It's glorious.
But I'm actually going to address how hip hop culture calls women bitches and sluts and whores and can glorify that. But the minute a woman in hip hop and urban culture owns her sexuality, it's a fucking problem.
But that's going to be an interesting stream coming from you. So for those of you guys who do join, however, you do need to read the rules and make sure you get the assigned roles that you need for the server. We do have rules about which roles you have to have in order to be admitted. And that includes things like age verification, because we need to make sure that if minors are in the chat, that heavy things are not being discussed.
Which they have to remind me of often.
Yes.
I forget that one.
I had to remind you on YouTube. tonight. But so if you guys haven't joined already yet, there's an invite in the description. It's a universal invite. You guys are welcome to come in. And like you'll get into sort of a chat where it's just like you have access to that in the welcome section. Once you have all your rules and stuff, ping a mod, and we can let you through at that point. But make sure you read all of the rules, because if you break them, there are consequences, and the consequences are in the rules. So you don't know what's going to happen to you if you don't actually read them. Part
of the consequences is I get to light you on fire.
That's if a mod doesn't save you first. Like, you better hope a mod gets to you first.
You better fucking hope I'm not paying attention.
So, anyway, thank you guys again so much. If you want to come join the allyship community, again, it's a safe space for everybody. That's part of the reason we have required roles, things like pronoun roles, religious tags, things like that. If you cannot see your tag listed under the self-assignables, let us know, and we'll try to add it for you if you need it, including like neopronouns and stuff. We've got a couple in there already. We only add them as we get told that we need them. But yeah, thank you guys again for hanging out with us, and
thank you for coming, Maddie. This was fantastic.
This was so much fun.
This is awesome.
I'll see you guys in Discord.
Well, and do not forget, Maddie's link is in the description. She is criminally undersubbed. She has a third of my subs. Y'all need to go send her some fucking love. If you watch this and you enjoyed or laughed or even so much as snickered or giggled, go check out her stuff. She's a fantastic friend of the channel. She's been my friend for quite a while, since before I even started my channel, and has backed me and been there for me through a lot of stuff. Go check her stuff out. She's an excellent science communicator, and you need her content in your life. All right, good. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, even if you don't join us for the after party. And remember, we're stronger together.